Do you know the secrets of a perfect weld seam? Stay tuned, I will tell you. Within some of our last videos, we have been talking about the perfect weld seam in general. What does it need to get there? For sure, we need to think about how to achieve the perfect clean alloy. We have been talking about stainless steel manufacturing in general, and we were thinking about what type of alloy to use for what purpose. So let's assume now we have selected the right material, we have selected the right heat, the right cleanliness for our purpose that we want to achieve here. I brought you these two samples, and what else do you need to consider regarding the weld seam? For sure, you need to make a proper end preparation, which means facing of the ends to a perfect matching of both of these ends. For sure, you also need to consider cleaning of the two ends. So the ends should be free from grease and oil, dust, whatsoever. Everything that could contaminate the weld seam as such. For sure, also during welding preparation, you need to use the right purge gas, which means a low amount of oxygen and probably some additives, probably hydrogen, for example, in order to reduce the discoloration of the weld seam. You need a proper pre-purge, purge and post-purge time, concentrations and pressures. So actually everything is set and we can start using our weld head to achieve the weld seam. Or are there any details that we might need to consider as well? Probably small details, probably very challenging details, such as using the right electrode here. I brought you three kinds of samples for electrodes. And what is the secret of the perfect electrode you're using? First of all, these three electrodes are in totally different conditions. One is a new one. The other one is used, and you can see that there is a pretty excessive amount of metal oxides on the surface already. And what does that cause? It will cause that the surface of the tip is not perfectly aligned anymore to produce the right arc. So the arc might become wider, might become more unspecific. So not matching really the seam of both ends of your tubing systems or tubing system. The third tip that I have here is a tip which touched the weld bead at some point. And when it's touching the weld bead, the current gets very high and the weld bead will not be liquid anymore. This is causing certainly that the tip, the very front tip of the electrode will break off. And when this is happening, you will have an undefined contact and angle to the basic steel surface. And that is causing a very indifferent and very uncontrollable arc, which is not doing the proper job anymore. But also with regard to the initial structure, the initial geometry here, what do we need to take into account? Actually, you have electrodes being either 1.6 or 2.4 millimeter in diameter. And the angle that you should try to form is roughly 20 degrees. However, what kind of method should you use to grind the electrode? If you use the wrong grinding method, then you have circumferential grinding pattern within or around the tip of the electrode. This is causing, let's say, a lot of different peaks and a lot of different electromagnetic field lines attaching or touching or being in contact with your actual tube sample. So again, also here, the arc that you will create is very unstructured and not in line with your purpose. If you do a grinding which is longitudinal to the axis of the electrode, then you will have a unique tip and a unique point at the very tip of the electrode where the arc will ignite and where it's touching the tubing system. So that's the proper, let's say, preparation of an electrode as it should be. I hope I could give you an insight into the, let's say, hidden secrets probably of a perfect weld seam, and I would be happy if you would raise your questions to us in order to get the right answers you need. So far so good. Take care, stay tuned and stay healthy.